Your soulmate had something to say about your style. Stay until the end. Something in your soulmate's expression shifted the moment someone mentioned your style, and it wasn't the reaction anyone around them expected. They were sitting in a casual conversation, half listening, half lost in thought, when your name suddenly entered the room. At first, they smiled. Just a small smile, almost impossible to notice. Then someone made an innocent comment about the way you present yourself. The clothes you choose, the details you notice, the unmistakable way you carry yourself when you walk into a room. Your soulmate looked down for a second, as though they were deciding whether to stay quiet. They could have laughed it off. They could have changed the subject. Instead, they leaned forward and said something that immediately made the conversation feel different. You don't understand. That's actually one of the things I notice most. There was a brief silence. And what they said after that revealed that they haven't simply been noticing your appearance. They've been reading something deeper through it. Stay close, because the detail they chose to mention wasn't the obvious one. Your soulmate explained that your style seems to change with your energy. Not dramatically. Not in a way everyone would recognize. But they recognize it. They remembered moments when you looked completely effortless, yet somehow carried more presence than people who had spent hours trying to be noticed. They remembered another moment when something about you seemed different, a small choice, perhaps the way you wore your hair, the confidence behind an outfit, an accessory you probably forgot about 5 minutes later. But they didn't forget. There's always something that feels like them, your soulmate quietly said. That sentence caught everyone's attention because suddenly this wasn't a conversation about fashion anymore. It was about identity. Your soulmate believes your strongest quality isn't following whatever everyone else is doing. It's that tiny signature you leave on everything. Even when you experiment. Even when you change. Somehow, you remain recognizable. But then someone across the room asked the question that pushed the conversation somewhere far more personal. So what would you change about their style? Your soulmate went completely still. Their smile faded, not because they were uncomfortable, but because they wanted to answer carefully. And their response surprised everyone. They said they wouldn't change the thing other people might expect. Instead, they wished you could sometimes see yourself through their eyes. Think about that for a moment. Your soulmate wasn't asking for different clothes, a different look, or a different version of you. They were talking about the confidence underneath it all. They admitted there are moments when they sense you questioning yourself unnecessarily, perhaps wondering whether something suits you or whether people are judging the way you look. Yet from their perspective, those are often the exact moments when your personality becomes impossible to ignore. Then came the line nobody in that conversation was prepared for. Your soulmate smiled again and said, "If they knew what I notice when they walk into a room, they'd never second-guess themselves." But they didn't explain what they meant. Not immediately. Someone laughed and asked them to finish the thought. Your soulmate hesitated, glanced away, and suddenly seemed almost embarrassed by how much they were about to reveal. Because apparently, there is one specific thing you do, something connected to your style that you may not even realize you're doing. That catches their attention every single time. And when they finally described it, the conversation stopped being casual altogether. The answer came out more quietly than anyone expected, almost as if your soulmate had forgotten there were other people in the room. They said the thing that catches their attention isn't a particular outfit, color, hairstyle, or expensive detail. It's what happens right after you finish getting ready and stop thinking about how you look. That tiny transition. The moment you adjust something without looking in a mirror, straighten your sleeve, move your hair away from your face, or simply start walking as though your attention has moved on to the rest of your day. According to your soulmate, that is when your style becomes completely yours. That's the moment, they said, smiling to themselves. Someone immediately asked what they meant, and your soulmate tried to explain something they had apparently noticed many times. When you're consciously wondering how you look, there can be a slight hesitation in your expression, but once you forget about being observed, your whole presence changes. Your shoulders relax. Your movements become natural. Your personality takes over. And somehow, whatever you're wearing suddenly looks different because you're no longer wearing it for anyone else. Stay with this, because the conversation was about to reveal something even more unexpected. One person jokingly asked, "So you've been watching that closely?" Your soulmate laughed, but they couldn't really deny it. Their face gave away the answer before their words did. They admitted they remember details they probably shouldn't remember, the jacket you wore during an ordinary moment, the way one particular look made you seem unusually confident, the small combinations you repeat without realizing they have become part of your signature. None of those memories mattered because of the clothes themselves. They mattered because your soulmate had attached emotions to them. Certain versions of your style had become connected to certain memories of you, and that realization made everyone around them suddenly understand just how closely they had been paying attention. Then someone asked whether there was one look they remembered more clearly than all the others, and your soulmate's expression immediately changed. This time there was no quick answer. They stared toward the window for a moment, searching through a memory they clearly knew very well, and when they finally spoke, they didn't describe anything glamorous. They remembered you looking completely ordinary. Nothing carefully staged. Nothing designed to impress. Maybe you were rushing somewhere, maybe you had other things on your mind, but there had been something unusually genuine about you that day. Your soulmate remembered thinking that you looked comfortable being yourself, and apparently that image stayed with them longer than any polished appearance ever could. That was when I understood it, they said. Understood what? Someone asked exactly that. Your soulmate leaned back and explained that your style isn't memorable because of what you wear. It's memorable because people can sense when you feel connected to yourself. When you choose something because you genuinely like it, there's a different energy in the way you move. When you're trying too hard to satisfy an expectation, they believe they can see that too. And here was the surprising part, your soulmate doesn't want some perfected version of you. They're drawn toward the details that make you unmistakably individual. The choices another person might overlook, the combinations nobody else would think twice about, even the occasional experiment that doesn't go exactly as planned. If this story is making you think about someone special, you're welcome to share it with them. Leave a comment about the style detail that makes you feel most like yourself, and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this. Because the conversation didn't end with admiration. Your soulmate suddenly admitted there was something they had wanted to tell you directly for a long time, but every opportunity had somehow passed before they could say it. And this was where the atmosphere became strangely intimate. Someone asked, "Then why haven't you told them?" Your soulmate looked down, traced a finger along the edge of the table, and gave an answer nobody teased them about. They said they were worried you might misunderstand. A compliment about someone's appearance can sound shallow when what you actually mean is much deeper, and your soulmate didn't want you thinking they valued you only for how you looked. What they wanted to tell you was that your style had become one of the ways they recognized your personality before you even spoke. They notice when you seem confident enough to experiment. They notice when you return to something familiar because it makes you comfortable. They notice those days when you appear to have chosen everything effortlessly, and they even notice when you seem uncertain and quietly adjust something at the last second. But beneath every version, they see the same person. And then your soulmate said something that changed the mood completely. "There's one thing I hope they never change." Everyone expected another comment about clothing. Instead, your soulmate shook their head. It wasn't clothing. It wasn't your hair. It wasn't anything you could buy, replace, or copy from someone else. They said there is a particular expression that appears on your face when you genuinely feel good about yourself, a brief, almost private confidence before you become aware that anyone else is looking. Your soulmate has noticed it repeatedly, and apparently, it has become their favorite part of your entire style. But before anyone could respond, they added one more sentence. "There's also something I've never seen them wear that I think would look incredible on them." Suddenly everyone started guessing. Every guess was wrong. Your soulmate laughed, shook their head, and finally agreed to reveal exactly what they meant, and the answer had almost nothing to do with fashion. Nobody guessed it, because everyone was thinking about something you could hang in a closet, order online, or place in a shopping bag. Your soulmate let them keep guessing for a few seconds. Another jacket, a certain color, a completely different hairstyle, something elegant, something bold, and each time they simply smiled and shook their head. Then they finally said, "I want to see them wear complete confidence." The room went quiet again. Not because the answer was dramatic, but because suddenly every earlier comment made sense. Your soulmate explained that they have seen flashes of that confidence in you before, usually when you aren't trying to prove anything. It appears when you're laughing and forget anyone is watching, when you walk into a place focused on where you're going instead of wondering who might be judging you, when you choose something because you love it rather than because you think someone else will approve. In those moments, your entire style changes without a single piece of clothing changing. Your posture becomes easier. Your expression becomes brighter. Even the smallest details seem more intentional. And your soulmate confessed that those are the moments when it becomes difficult for them to look away. But there was another layer to what they meant. They weren't suggesting that confidence means being loud, perfect, or constantly certain. To them, your most unforgettable presence appears when you stop comparing yourself to anyone else. They had noticed occasions when you seemed to question whether you should dress differently, present yourself differently, or somehow become more like whatever was popular around you. And every time, your soulmate had silently wanted to tell you the same thing: the qualities you might be tempted to edit are often the exact qualities that make you memorable. Keep listening, because after saying this, your soulmate remembered a moment involving you that nobody else in the room knew about. And it explained why this conversation mattered so much to them. It happened during an ordinary day, the kind of day you probably wouldn't think deserved a permanent place in someone else's memory. Your soulmate saw you from a distance before you noticed them. There was no dramatic entrance. You weren't posing for a photograph or expecting anyone important to see you. You were simply moving through your day, dressed in a way that felt natural to you, completely occupied with something else. Yet your soulmate remembered every detail about the atmosphere, the movement around you, the casual noise of people talking, the way you briefly stopped and looked toward something that caught your attention. Then you smiled. Not for them. Not for anyone watching. Just a spontaneous smile that appeared because something in that moment genuinely pleased you. Your soulmate said that was when your entire appearance seemed to come together. Not because anything suddenly changed, but because your personality became visible through it. They realized that style, at least the way they experienced yours, was never really about fashion. It was communication without words. Your choices carried traces of your independence, your softer side, your playfulness, even the moods you didn't explain out loud. And here's the detail worth noticing: your soulmate admitted that after that day, they started recognizing little patterns. When you were feeling adventurous, you seemed willing to try something slightly unexpected. When you wanted comfort, you returned to familiar details. When you were feeling especially sure of yourself, you didn't seem to check whether anyone approved at all. They had quietly learned these patterns without intentionally trying to. Someone at the table smiled and said, "You realize you're talking like someone who knows them incredibly well." Your soulmate didn't answer immediately. Instead, they gave that small, unmistakable smile again. Because perhaps that was exactly what they were beginning to understand themselves. But the most revealing moment came when someone asked your soulmate a different question: if they were standing here right now, what would you actually say to them? For several seconds, your soulmate said nothing. The playful energy disappeared. Their expression softened, and when they finally answered, their words were surprisingly simple. They said they would tell you to stop saving your favorite version of yourself for some imaginary future moment. Stop thinking you need a special occasion to wear what makes you feel incredible. Stop assuming you have to become more polished, more fashionable, or more like somebody else before you deserve to walk into a room with confidence. They would tell you that the style they admire most is the one that feels honest, the version that carries your personality instead of hiding it. Then your soulmate paused and admitted something even more personal: there is a reason they notice your style so closely, and it goes beyond attraction. Whenever they imagine spending more time with you, they don't picture some perfect cinematic version of you dressed for an extraordinary occasion. They picture ordinary mornings, casual afternoons, unexpected plans. You reaching for something familiar because it makes you comfortable. You asking, "Does this look okay?" Even though they already know what their answer would be. Those tiny scenes are what stayed in their imagination. And just when everyone thought your soulmate had finally revealed everything, they leaned forward and said there was one compliment they had deliberately kept to themselves, the one they had almost told you more than once, only to stop at the last second. It wasn't about what looks best on you. It was about what happens to them whenever they see you feeling completely comfortable in your own skin. And this time, they were finally ready to say it out loud. The words finally came, but your soulmate didn't deliver them like a rehearsed compliment. There was no clever line and no attempt to impress the people listening. They simply looked down for a moment, smiled at the memory, and said, "When they feel completely comfortable being themselves, everyone else disappears for me." That was it. For a second, nobody interrupted. Then your soulmate explained what they had been trying to put into words all along. When you genuinely like what you're wearing, when you aren't checking every reflection or wondering whether someone else would choose the same thing, your presence becomes different in a way they can immediately recognize. You become more expressive. Your smile arrives more easily. You move without correcting yourself. And according to them, that version of you has a kind of magnetism no trend could manufacture. They remembered almost telling you this once. You had apparently questioned some tiny detail about your appearance, something so small that your soulmate couldn't understand why you were giving it so much importance. They wanted to say, "You have no idea what I'm seeing right now." But they stopped themselves. Maybe the timing felt wrong. Maybe saying it would have revealed too much. So instead, they gave you a simpler response and carried the real thought away with them. What you never knew was that they remembered that moment afterward. More than once. And now, sitting in this conversation, they admitted they wished they had said everything. There's a reason that matters. Your soulmate wasn't merely remembering how you looked. They were remembering how they felt around you. And suddenly the connection between your style and their feelings became impossible for them to hide. Someone across the table noticed the shift and asked the question everyone else was probably thinking: "Are you saying their style made you fall for them?" Your soulmate laughed softly and immediately said no. Not exactly. Clothes didn't create the feeling. Your appearance didn't create it either. What caught them was the personality they could sometimes glimpse through your choices before they fully understood you. The unexpected detail that suggested humor. The familiar piece you kept returning to because it clearly meant something to you. The days when you dressed with quiet confidence and seemed completely uninterested in competing for attention. Even the moments when you experimented and later wondered whether you had made the right choice told them something. You were still discovering yourself, still evolving, still allowing yourself to change. Your soulmate found that beautiful because it felt human. Then they said something even more revealing: if they ever had the opportunity to stand beside you while you were deciding what to wear, they wouldn't want to choose for you. They would want to watch you choose for yourself. And remind you not to dismiss the option that makes your face brighten simply because you're worried about somebody else's opinion. That sentence seemed to surprise even your soulmate after they said it. It sounded less like commentary about fashion and more like the kind of support someone gives when they genuinely care about another person becoming more comfortable with who they are. If you've enjoyed being inside this conversation, you're welcome to share the story with someone who could use that reminder. Tell me in the comments what style makes you feel most confident, and subscribe if you'd like more emotionally cinematic stories like this. Because one question still hadn't been answered: why had your soulmate been thinking about your style enough for all these details to come pouring out so easily? The explanation appeared almost accidentally. Someone smiled at your soulmate and asked, "When did you start noticing all of this?" That question stopped them. You could almost imagine the memories moving behind their eyes as they searched for the beginning. Finally, they admitted there wasn't one exact day. It happened gradually. First they noticed what you wore. Then they noticed what you repeated. After that, they began noticing the difference between the days you dressed for yourself and the days you